And really, if we were going to take it, we would just take the audio off anyway. I would just strip out the audio so that people could have it if they don't get to come to a session, so not a problem. All right, so we have some, I think folks just came on, great. I don't see everybody. Is there a reason why I don't see everybody? Oh, +2, you just, if they talk?
Yeah,
okay, great, all right. Well, I'm gonna get started. It's a little weird talking to a screen with just one face, hi. And I'm assuming that Leighton was going to pop on when he's probably stuck in a meeting. So I'm Lisa Lotzmeiser. I'm one of the co-coordinators of KTY2, which is the cohort that's going right now. And so what we're going to, there's Leighton. So I'm going to take a breath and let him join. So the information session that you've joined is there he is. Hey, Leighton. Leighton, when you can, say something so we know you're there.
Hello.
Hey, there you are. Good. All right, all I said, Leighton, can we turn the sound up just a tiny bit?
I think he needs to turn it up at his end.
Leighton, will you turn the volume up just a wee bit on yourself?
Great.
So all I said, Leighton, was hi, and I'm co-coordinator of KTY2, and we were just about to kind of get started, so you and I can do our beginning. I hadn't even had a chance to let people introduce themselves, so that's where I was going next. Leighton, I can't hear you at all.
Oh.
Okay, so how about this? Will people go around, unmute yourselves and say who you are and where you're coming from, please? So, Alistair, can we start with you?
Yeah, sure. My name is Alistair McKay. I live and work in Caslow at G.B. Humphreys School, and yeah.
Thanks, Alistair. Alyssa and Crystal?
Thanks.
Hi there, my name is Alyssa Franklin. I work at Selkirk College and teach in the BSN program in the International Gerontology program. This is my second year teaching there, so just moving from practice into education.
Great.
Hi there, I'm Crystal Thorpe. I am also a nursing instructor at Selkirk College, yeah, it's great to be here.
Great. Hey, Birdie. Birdie is in KTY2, for those of you who wonder why I'm over there. Jason?
Hello, everyone. My name is Jason Ostaforov. I apologize, I'm battling a bit of a man cold here, but I'm from Revelstoke, BC, SD19. Currently working in the ADST realm of things, so woodworking, shop, electronics, robotics, photography, a little bit of everything, but in main interest in math and sciences.
Thanks, Jason. Carrie and Curtis.
I'm Curtis. I teach at the middle school. We got 6, 7, and 8. And
I'm having a really hard time understanding you. You sound a little bit like you're in a fishbowl.
I'll come right inside. My name's Curtis Bendig. I work at Trafalgar Middle School in beautiful Nelson, BC.
Can you hear him okay? Yeah, okay, I'm Carrie Jackson. I also teach at Trafalgar in Nelson, and I teach grade 6.
Nice to meet you. All right, Mr. Leighton, want to introduce yourself?
Can you hear me this time, everybody?
Much better.
Great. Hi, I'm Leighton Schnellert, and I'm the co-coordinator of the cohort, the current cohort, and I was part of the program development from the beginning, and I'm very much looking forward to what we might develop together for the third cohort. And Lisa and I will walk you through some of the aspects of the program so you get a sense of it. There'll be time for questions, and I think also Vicky will talk a little bit about kind of aspects of the design of the program from kind of like the application perspective.
Thank you. Marla?
Hi there, my name is Marla Gonzalez. I work with School District 20, and I'm here waiting for my kids while they're skating, so that's the background you're seeing. But so I'm a district mentor. I work with the inclusion support team for the whole district, and I do staff training for specialized programs and for inclusion support staff.
Thank you. Susan?
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, my name is Susan Christie. I'm a primary teacher at Brent Kennedy Elementary in School District 8.
Great, thank you. And just so you all know, you're going to see me pop out at about 4:15 because I teach at 4:30, and I have to go to a different building. So don't take it personally. It's just I gotta go. So, Layton, do you want to start off?
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'll talk just a tiny little bit about the development of the program. The program was designed with the 4 school districts in the region, and so we had a gathering of almost 60 educators come together. It must be 5 years ago now, to talk about what would we like to see in the Kootenays, how could we offer something in the Kootenays for Kootenay educators so that you didn't have to go to other parts or to American universities to have a program, but that you could participate in something that was meaningful to you in your context. The feedback from the room at that time was that the majority of the program should be face-to-face in our Kootenay way, so that we could be discussing and exploring and sharing. Even though we had the option to be more of an online program, folks really felt that coming together would be important, and so we decided to be based in Nelson, but also recognizing our wonderfully diverse weather, that some kind of a blended online learning aspect between those have a session would be important, but we do want you to know that at least thus far, both the first and second cohort have felt that the face-to-face time has been important, and that online things that are happening in between are supportive of that learning or helping you prepare for the next learning. And the other thing I think we wanted to highlight is the 2 themes that were arrived at. Place consciousness is deeply valued by not just the school districts, but our entire region. And just to highlight that place consciousness includes environmental education, but really it's just a critical notion of recognizing that there are multiple perspectives involved in whatever we do. And so place consciousness becomes looking for the perspectives and the voices of all, including equity-seeking communities, and a little bit less of a process product approach to education, which is like, if I do this, this will happen, and a much more kind of collaborative, emergent idea that education is part of the community and has both a social aspect, and that we as educators need to be open to being disrupted from different perspectives in terms of what we do. That's a pretty short attempt to summarize place consciousness in like one sentence with a lot of semicolons. The other thing that was deeply important to the region, and how Lisa originally I think came on board, was that we committed as a program in the development to have this practitioner inquiry orientation, which is not just teacher inquiry, but practitioners or educators, and that you would be able to identify and derive and work on a project that was deeply meaningful to you, and that the learning that we engaged in, the theory and the ideas, then you draw that in, but it's really about you driving and developing yourself as a practitioner in your place, and then growing the schema that you have in terms of what you do to deepen your practice and your understanding of what you do. So those 2 pieces, those 2 themes really came from the field, and then faculty like Lisa and myself and others that we'll talk about, we all come from similar commitments, and so then you get a chance to work with different instructors in the program that are supporting you to develop your inquiries and also your understanding of education and what could be. Lisa, do you want to add?
Not to that part, no, that was good. Well done. So the courses generally run on Saturdays during the regular school year. So regular school year goes in September, but so when you all, KTY3 starts, you'll start the first part of August. You'll do a place consciousness course to start off with. And then the second course of your summer will be a course on curriculum theory and curriculum history with an emphasis on place consciousness. Those two courses happen in Nelson, and they're six or 7 days long, depending on which course it is. 6, Leighton's telling me 6. I think you made the second one 7.
You're right. One is 6 and one is 7.
Okay. All right. So one course is 6 days, the other course is 7, and there's a few days in between, so everybody can go home and, see their families and rest and relax and enjoy a tiny bit of August. And then in September, after the Labor Day, and the normal course for the two, Winter 1 and Winter 2, is just about every other Saturday in Nelson, with Winter 2 being a lot more iffy weather-wise. So that it's a combination of blended of online and in-person from January to April because of the weather. And then May, June, again, is about every other week. And summertime, in the first full summer, it's again intensive courses, 5, 6, 7 days happening in July, and allowing you a bit of summer after that. And then we start up again. It's a 2-year plus a summer, so 2 full years plus a summer course, and with a capstone project at the end.
Great. I think something that's important to know related to that is that we do recognize that you're working professionals, and yet you're making space to be exposed to ideas that may be new and readings and styles that aren't always comfortable. And so there'll be moments that really resonate and feel comfortable, and there'll be moments like you're reading something and you're thinking, I've never been introduced to this kind of language before. We want you to know that it's okay to be disrupted, and that we'll also support you to think through those ideas. But part of our role in this work is not just to say, yes, you're doing a good job, but to say, would this be, and where do you, and then you define your, as you,
Hey, Leighton, you're breaking up.
You're saying, so based on this, I have this idea, oh, sorry, and think about where you want to head. So just know that hello?
All right. How you doing there, Leighton? Say something so we can hear you.
Leighton.
Yes. Yeah, you're a little choppy, so we'll keep going until you go, yeah?
I'm talking.
So the other thing to know is that the majority of the faculty will be flying in from Point Grey, from down here in Vancouver, and coming up just to teach you. So they've chosen, all of these instructors have chosen to be a part of the cohort and chosen to teach with you. Majority of them have worked with the cohort either once or twice. Some of them will be working with you all for the 3rd time. And so everyone's got a commitment to the cohort and to what the cohort is about. And Leighton, I know you're gone, so you usually take the next section. Are you there?
I'm here.
Hi. Okay.
Hi.
Hi.
Okay. No, yes?
Yes-ish. Go. Try.
Okay. Are we able to show them the course sequence?
Yes. Vicky's got it all set up for us. 1 second.
Thanks, Vicky. So let's take a look at the courses.
Introduce herself, but she didn't really want to anyway, so.
There we go.
Down for me, if you would. Or up, or.
Yeah, I have to switch it.
Looks great.
Perfect.
Fantastic. Here we go. So as Lisa mentioned, the first course is Practitioner, Inquiry, and Place-conscious Pedagogies, which happens in earlier August. And then Curriculum Issues and Theories in Education, which also happens in August. Then Research Methodologies in Education will happen in the fall, where you're be exposed to a range of qualitative research methods. And then in January, we'll take up theorizing pedagogy, which will help you to develop what's called your theoretical framework and your literature review for your proposal. So we start working on your proposal in the January of the first year. Then we have a beautiful course called Exploring Indigenous Historical and Cultural Sites of Learning, and that will happen in May, June. And then we have a really nice course in July 2021 called Artography with Dr. Rita Irwin. That course is actually an elective. So that one's offered in Nelson, but if you wanted to take something else on the Point Grey campus, you could take that instead. And then in the fall, September 2021, we look at curriculum change and planning, which is a really nice course to be doing at the same time as you finalize your inquiry proposal. And then January 2022 is at the same time that you'll be engaging in your inquiry project. And so that living inquiry course is actually, we're engaging it in ways that support you in looking at your inquiries as you're engaging. And then education action research is also an elective, but that course will help you in analyzing your data. And then you will present your graduating paper at the end of July in 2022.
Lane, we can either have Vicky do a spiel or answer some questions because I'm still here. What do you prefer?
Great. Why don't we do some Q&A a little bit while you're still here, Lisa, and then I can pick up other questions that are happening after that. Vicky, do you have a couple things to talk about in terms of applying?
Well, I do have the presentation that that Linda provided. I'm actually filling in for the senior graduate assistant, Linda Hafner, who will be responsible to provide support for the program. But you know, if you'd like me, I can go ahead and put that up now, or do you want to? Did you want to talk first? I thought you wanted to talk first. No?
Why don't we take a few questions and see where it goes?
Sure. Great.
If you have any. They're all just staring at me.
We feel the excitement. Any questions about that part, about the flow of the courses or how they're taught?
Curtis here. I was hoping that maybe you could speak a little bit more to about the final inquiry. Just looking at the flow there, it kind of looks like everything from January on, or January 2022, I guess, on, is project focused or building on that project. I'm just curious if you can provide kind of some scope of what that might look like, or depending on who we are, and yeah.
Well, and that key word there, Curtis, is depending on who we are. So it really is dependent upon what you're interested in. The scope is extremely wide in terms of what people are doing. There are folks doing all kinds of different things. And of course, whenever you ask me this question, I blank out. So, hey, Leighton, what are people doing? Oh, you're frozen again. Hey, Leighton, I've got a suggestion. Will you try turning off your video and see if that makes your audio better? No, really. Okay. Yeah.
So
it could be a good comedy routine.
First,
Leighton, we can't hear you. So I'm going to talk over you for a sec, Leighton. And then if you come back on, let us know. That's okay. So Curtis, so there can be things, so there are folks doing inquiries in schools. There are folks doing inquiries. So there's one person doing an inquiry with some mothers. There's one person doing an inquiry around their own teaching practice.
Any better?
There's another person out in the Boundary that's doing a really interesting project looking at their own practice in relationship to their students and the notions of the wild and reflection. There's another student talking about wilding space, also out in the Boundary with K1, looking at how to bring the kindergarten curriculum from the classroom into the wilding space. There's another person who is part of an outdoor education program and they're looking at their practice in the outdoor education program and how the students are perceiving what they're doing. There's another person up in Roslyn doing work around, Bertie, what is Deb doing? I've totally forgotten.
Working on play within physical education.
So looking at what does it mean to think about changing physical education for students to begin to think about what they're doing in classes to expand outside the classroom space, and does that have any feeling or change for the students in relationship to their overall health and wellness? Curtis, does that give you sort of a general idea?
Yeah, definitely could start. But in terms of kind of, I guess, so in my mind right now, I'm thinking inquiry. I'm thinking kind of Trevor McKenzie and Rebecca Baxter-Hunt public graphics of like going on a journey through the mountains across, and then having a kind of, particularly when it comes to my students, like a wide spectrum of what a product looks like in terms of that inquiry, right? So I mean, whether they're making videos, whether they're doing presentations, whether they've harvested their own carrots out of the deal. I'm just kind of curious if that is within the realm of possibilities, or what the realm of possibilities for a, I guess, final presentation when it comes to July 2022 would look like for anyone in this program.
I think that's a great question. I think up to this point, the majority of the work that's been done has been done in written form, because we're part of the UBC system and we have to coordinate with them. But it doesn't mean that a case couldn't be made and we couldn't have a conversation with the graduate advisor about what's permissible. If a case was made for something, nothing's out of bounds. We just have to get approval for things that are different. And so we would have to get approval. And we'd have to see if they would go for it, which would mean putting together a really good plan and a proposal.
I think can you hear me, folks?
Now we can hear you, yes, lovely.
Great, I've moved. I think the way that I would frame it is, Curtis, is that you go through this cycle of figuring out where you want to go. We call that not just your inquiry question, but doing a literature review. So you're anchoring what you have. And so throughout the first year and a half of the program, you're figuring out where you want to go, you're defining it, you're supporting it, you're saying, how is this growing your practice, but also like, where does it fit with what's out there? And then you create an inquiry plan. And so thinking back to kind of the folks that you mentioned from Victoria in terms of their work on inquiry, then once you're engaging in your inquiry, how you collect data and the activities you engage in your practice will be different depending if you're a district inclusion support teacher, or you're a nursing faculty, or you're teaching grade 6. It's not the same place to place. It's that you've got a plan in terms of what you're doing, and then also recognizing that what happens is surprising. So there is space for emergence in terms of, you thought it was going here, but now you're finding out this. And so you really are documenting your inquiry journey. And then you do go back and you say, let me explain and analyze my data and talk about what I've learned. And so you have a final paper in some kind of form, but there's a diversity in writing styles that's really supported. And then there's also a presentation, and that presentation at the end has looked incredibly diverse. I've gone from a judo demonstration to an entire metaphorical cooking demonstration to a PowerPoint slide by slide. Let me walk you through my process, but the two complement each other. So the written piece and the presentation really talk about and document your inquiry journey, but it's always supported by what did the literature say, what did I want to explore, what did I do, what did I learn through my analysis, and where does this take me next?
Other questions?
Yeah, I do have a question in regards to, I'm not a teacher. I have a bachelor's degree in child and youth care with an Indigenous specialization, and is that a degree that would be considered for this program? I have worked with the schools directly as an employee for almost 3 years, and have done, regional work with all 3 of the school districts in the Kootenays over the last 10 years.
Yes.
Okay, that was easy.
It was designed as practitioner inquiry. So as
Yeah.
long as you're in some kind of role as an educator, it could be formal, informal, higher ed, and actually diversity has been our strengths. I have a background in secondary math and science, and some of my favorite things is the things that I've learned from the primary folks. So definitely the space that we're in is kind of like defining the context that you're working, talking about what's meaningful. There will be a fair bit of like education in BC talk, but the more perspectives, the better in terms of the richness. And because we're taking up place consciousness, it's actually it makes what we're doing richer. And so we'd really want your voice in the mix.
Okay.
And the Selkirk College folks have taught us a lot about thinking outside the K-12 contexts.
Community engagement.
Mm-hmm. Other questions?
I was going to ask if you have a minimum number of students that you needed to do the program, and if you had a maximum number that you will take the cohort.
Our minimum is, depending on the day that we talk to somebody, between 16 and 18. And realistically, realistically, I think that 24 is kind of
He said 24.
having
Okay.
The first cohort had
4.
I think
This cohort has 21. The first cohort had 24. But as he said, it seems like a little bit of a moving target. We'll run at this next one with something like 16 to 18 if that's where we're at. Is that right, Nathan? Chris, did I see another question?
I'm curious how much it costs.
Perfect segue.
Okay, time for the program-related, the administrative part of the presentation. So I'm going to share a PowerPoint, which has been prepared by, again, Linda Hafner, who will be the person providing you with your main support for the program. So hopefully everything that you're interested in will be covered here. If it's not, feel free to ask questions. I'll answer what I can. Anything that I can't answer, feel free to email Linda, and her contact information will be at the end of the presentation. So KTY 3 cohort coming up in starting in August, 2 years plus a term, as already explained. So for admissions requirements, we'll get to the cost in a moment. I'll just go through it in order. So basically, a 4-year undergraduate degree, you need B+ range, which is 76% at UBC in all senior level courses, so your 300 and 400 level courses, or a B- range with a combined 4-year undergraduate degree and a B.Ed. I think there are special cases for lower GPA and degree. The conversation that was just had with what type of degree you had, there is some flexibility in that. So, it doesn't have to be specifically a B.Ed, but you do need 2 years experience teaching, full-time teaching experience or equivalent combination, engagement. There's obviously a variety of combinations where that could come from. You could be working within schools, communities, etc. Of course, there's the English language requirement that is a UBC requirement. If you've got a degree from within Canada, you automatically meet that requirement. If your undergraduate degree was outside of Canada in a country where their English is not the primary language of instruction, then you need to get in contact with Linda to talk about what your options for that are. And I think that may be covered in the next slide. Yes, English language requirement. So if you do need to take an English language test, TOEFL and IELTS are the 2 main ones. If you do IELTS, make sure it's the academic. And when it says please contact me, that's please contact Linda. Okay, so when you're filling in your application, there will be a number of supporting documents required. Transcripts, what we usually suggest is order 2 copies of your sealed transcripts, have them come delivered to yourself, keep one sealed because you'll need to send that to UBC once you're admitted to the program. You'll open the other program, scan the front and the back into one PDF file, and upload that to your application. You'll need to include your resume, a 600-word statement of intent. You want to clearly talk about your professional interests, your experience, your practitioner inquiry in place-conscious pedagogies, etc. All of those things that indicate why you're interested in the program, why you would be a good fit for the program, and why the program's a good fit for you. And then there'll be 3 letters of recommendation. They can be academic, from educators, instructors you've had. They can be colleagues or supervisors, anyone who can speak to your interest and potential to complete a graduate program, especially in this field. And so when the time comes to apply, you'll go to grad.ubc.ca/apply/online. You're going to search for KTY3 and make sure you're checking off the August 2020 intake. You can apply by the deadline, which I believe is in the next slide. You don't have to have all your supporting documents before you hit the apply button. You will have access to continue to upload, but anything in the text where you're putting in your address and writing, there's going to be a few questions about things. You can put some little statements or put information, that kind of thing. You need to have that completed before you hit submit. But all the supporting documents, your references and whatnot, that can all come up later, as long as it's in by the deadline. And one thing that we often get questions, your references will be emailed as soon as you hit submit. So you don't need to contact the references other than to confirm with them that they're willing to be a reference. They'll get an email. It will give them all the instructions, the links to download or connect to the online system. So that's all handled automatically. You don't have to worry about that. And okay, so the deadlines. The deadline is March 30th. That does include all supporting documents, although if you're waiting to the very last to submit, you might want to check with Linda to make sure, because things like references sometimes take an extra couple of days. So there's sometimes the documentation deadline is sometimes an extra few days, so that if you apply on the 30th, your referees have a couple days. So if you're not sure, just check with Linda. Application fees, 104 Canadian for domestic. I can't quite read that. 168, 25 Canadian for international. And that is due at the time when you hit submit. It will take you onto the payments screen. Now, tuition costs, what everybody wants to know. So for domestic Canadian students, that includes permanent residents. The total cost, based on today's tuition, and tuition does go up usually annually at the beginning of May, 15,141 Canadian. International students, 15,437.87. Student fees are on top of that. That does vary from term to term, where the first term of the academic year, September, is usually a little higher. Some of the fees are annual fees, and you'll get charged those in September. Some are a per term fee, and then so you'll get some fees that happen every term. There are things that you can opt out on, such as Vancouver Transit. You're not located in Vancouver, you don't want to be paying that. So, but you do generally have to opt out every term. So double check what fees you, have to do. When you go into the Student Service Center, you'll see a breakdown, and it will clearly indicate which ones you can opt out on. Each one may have a slightly different process, but just to be aware that not everything you have to pay. So installment is paid, or tuition is paid in installments. So instead of being charged once per year, you're going to be charged at the beginning of each term, September, January, and May. The tuition breaks down to, for Canadian and domestic, $21.63, international $22.05.41. Your first installment will be due the first week of July. It's usually the first week of the term because you start in the middle of summer session. It's the first week of July for the very first term. In your second year, it'll be the first week of May. And May 1st is usually when any tuition increases take effect. Various payment methods. It's best to check on the UBC website, the student services. Students.ubc.ca has all the information on which types of payment methods. While it says checks, personal checks are generally not accepted. It's certified checks, so you want to confirm if you're doing it any other way than online with credit card. And then again, tuition is charged as a whole program fee, not a per credit basis. So as a graduate student, because you're paying this as a whole program, you can take as many courses as you want. You know, you have a certain number of courses that are required by the program. You can opt to take some additional courses. There wouldn't be an extra charge unless it was some sort of like a summer institute that's a non-credit course. Those kind of things you would pay extra for. If it's a credit summer institute, you'd be okay. But just to keep, just so that you know, like if there's something you were specifically interested in and it didn't fit into the program and you wanted to take it on top, you could potentially do that. You would want to check with Leighton or Lisa before you sign up for anything extra, because it will have an impact on your program workload. And then here's the contact information for Linda. Her phone number, there's a toll-free number that'll go to our main office in PDCE, and they can pass you on to Linda, and her email address is here. And let's see if there's anything else. Yeah, does anybody have any questions about any of this?
Alistair.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I have a question about the last thing you said, just taking. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, the last thing you said?
Which part of the last? I'm sorry. Which last?
Yeah, sorry, I was just about to clarify. Just about taking additional courses on top of what's required for this this master's program. So, I guess this is a question more for Leighton. Just if I have an interest in a specific area, which like how do I go about adding that to this program?
Yeah, good question. I think, hey, Alistair. I think a good question point is you get 2 elective courses. So there are 2 courses that weren't well marked on what we looked at in the courses there, but you can take something of passion, of interest. We actually have the Western Dean's Agreement as well. So in the summer, if there was something you wanted to take at another institution that fit, there's that option there. So you got 2 electives to make choices. Second factor is, back to Curtis's point, you pick your inquiry focus. And I know Jason's on this call as well, and so it's a chance throughout the program to always be thinking about and developing your inquiry focus as you're going. And so you are reading and thinking in something in relation to what you're passionate about. And then the third thing, which I don't recommend, but it's always in the wind, is this program is not by credit. This program is by term in terms of what you're paying. So you could take an additional course if there was something that was available and fit in your schedule. It's just working full time and trying to do that on top. Those earlier 2 options, which is looking at your electives and also making sure that the inquiry project you take up is in that passion area, is that personalized part for you. But there is the option. I know someone in the first cohort took a couple additional courses. They fit into her schedule. In her case, it helped her with her qualifications as a special education teacher. But you're not limited to the number of courses you take, but there are the required courses, and 2 of the courses in that outline that we went through earlier are electives.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
Alistair, one thing is that if you were to do something with the Western Deans, it's a 6-week lead-up time. So everybody should know that if you did want to take something else down, say at UBCO or at Calgary, you have to do it 6 weeks ahead. You can't decide. Yeah.
Sorry, so the course would have to be finished 6 weeks prior, or whatever?
Just have approval.
Oh, okay.
It's a long approval process, and we had somebody who wanted to do it and didn't realize that it took 6 weeks, and we would like nobody else to have to be in that space.
Right. So 6 weeks prior to the start of that course.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, if it's through the Western Deans, I mean, as a UBC student, you can register for yourself.
I was just
for
talking about
courses.
Western Deans.
Yeah. If you wanted to take just other UBC regular courses, you could just register yourself through as the normal process. Is there any other questions about the application process or anything like that?
Any other questions, period?
Yeah, sorry. Hi, I was just trying to. Sorry, I came in a little bit late, so I'm really sorry if this got answered already. I was just wondering, the 3 references, I know it's academic or professional. Is it fine if I have 3 administrators right now? Would that work, coming from the 3, 1 principal, 2 vice principals that I currently have?
What we always say is it's always really good to have 1 academic, right? So it's always really great to have 1 from somebody you've had a course from. If it's not possible because it's somewhere else or too far away or it's been too long, fine. But our preference is that you have 1 academic. And then if you've got 2 of your administrators, great.
Yeah, even the professional references will be asked to comment on your ability to do a graduate program. But yeah, the academic reference goes into it more depth. So.
You want to know anything else, y'all?
I did have a question. I think in my maybe 4th year, I had 1 course that I got a 72 in. The rest of my courses are great. And it was just extreme circumstances where I was out in Victoria, totally out of my sorts, having to do an on-campus course while I was completing 4 other courses and intensive group work. Is that an automatic disqualifier, or is that something that we could work around?
It's an average.
Okay, then I definitely meet the average.
Average from your 3rd and 4th year, Vicki says.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, you should be fine.
Yeah, and if you did think it was something, your statement of intent is an opportunity to make a comment about that. If there is some circumstances that you could say, in this year this was happening and it did in fact, impact this, but it shouldn't. It's not the norm, kind of thing. So.
Yeah. And that was the other thing that, it's so funny. I'm really good at doing paperwork for everybody else. When it comes to myself, I am just awful. I'm the person that they have to write every Friday and be like, please submit your timesheet. And so looking at this statement of intent, I'm feeling a bit of anxiety around it. And I'm curious if there is a possible example somewhere or something that can be shared just so I can kind of have a little bit of a roadmap.
I'm not aware of a example that's a generic example that's been available. I've had that same question from my early childhood educator programs, and I haven't really been able to share anything. We obviously can't share a previous student's example. So people write a variety of things. Think of it as if you're applying for a job, your letter, your cover letter kind of thing. About a bit about yourself, where you see yourself headed, your professional goals. Again, why this program, why it's a good fit for you, and you're a good fit for it. Anything else, Lisa?
No. Lynn, you have anything to add to that as I depart from my class? Thanks, everybody.
Yeah. Over the years, if people weren't really sure, they sent me a draft of what they have, and I gave them feedback. So don't feel any worry about saying, here's what I have. Give me some
okay.
Be like 2 or 3 sentences.
Yeah, I wrote one, and but I second guessed it, and so I think what you're saying actually resonates a little bit more with what I kind of have put together. So yeah, Leighton, if you're okay with that, I'd love to just run it by you before I do a final submission then.
Well, and keep in mind, as I said, you can actually submit your application and upload those last
Yep.
documents after the fact, as long as it's all in place by the deadline. So if you
Okay.
wanted to, you know, submit your application tomorrow, and then you have time to put your transcripts and your, you know, your statement of intent and your resume and all that can be uploaded in stages afterwards.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
I had a question. Maybe I didn't see it correctly. Did I see that if you graduated from UBC or you attended UBC through like WECTAP and my graduate course, my undergrad course, I don't have to. I guess would I just let them know that they have my transcripts and I don't have to then send those in any way?
When you apply and you put UBC as your institution, the system will automatically access your records, so you don't need to worry about the transcripts for anything for UBC. Just make sure that it puts University of British Columbia as your institute.
Okay. Would that apply as well if I attended?
Sorry, I can't hear that.
I attended True University, but it was University College.
You've cut out. Sorry.
Can you hear me now?
Let me try setting my volume up a bit.
It's classic Kootenai.
It's our school Wi-Fi.
Susan, what I think I heard you say was that you did some coursework at TRU?
Well, it was College of the Caribbean, University College of the Caribbean. So my degree was my Bachelor of Arts degree was through UBC though, even though I attended there.
You can probably double check with Linda Hafner, who's the program coordinator or advisor, but you might have to request from them. But it is also possible that those transcripts will be on file with us, but you might have to request them from TRU as well.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I'm wondering, so it was mentioned about the 76 average. So I just want to double check because I have I have my science degree and then I have my teaching diploma on top of that. So I just want to check the average will be of all 300 and all 400 level courses I ever took in any subject.
What we'll do is generally it's based on your undergraduate degree, but if that degree, if it's close, we will calculate it on others, like each degree individually, but as you know, GPA is not the end all. You can still be such a special case admitted if your GPA doesn't meet it, but we won't combine them together. They will be calculated separately. It'll be noted that like perhaps maybe say for your undergraduate degree you're just slightly under, but your diploma certificate is higher. We'll make a note that both that because sometimes things happen. Earlier education, your grades may not be quite as high as you like, but then later on you're taking additional programs and your grades are really great. So it can balance out, and both will be calculated. It's just usually it's the undergraduate degree that's considered the primary degree, but anything else you've done is also taken into account.
Okay, yeah, so that would just be something to speak to maybe in my statement of intent, because I think, as I realized I wanted to be a teacher, I was more interested and my grades improved, that sort of thing. And I think that speaks better to my ability to do the master's anyways, because it's in the same realm. So I could always just speak to that and be like, look, I know my science degree doesn't meet this. At least I haven't double checked, but I don't think it meets doesn't quite meet the average. And so then, but I know the courses I took for my teaching degree more than meet the average.
It will help us make the case for you.
Okay.
Well, everyone, I think we've had great success with considering how things work in the Kootenays, and the dropping of people from calls and this excitement that we've had is quite typical. So yes, depending on what you need support with, I think you have the email address. Vicky, are we able to put that contact information back up? Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Good, there we go. So this address. So if you have questions, or transcripts, like Susan just asked, timelines, she's the person to email. I'm not sure if we have a slide with Lisa and my emails on it, but if not, it's on the very first page of the brochure. And you can email Lisa and I more around content of courses, flow of courses. If you wanted to send me your draft statement of intent, you'd be welcome to do that. We really care deeply about the work that you're doing and want to be supportive, so please feel free to reach out. And also know that what we develop, we will develop together, because as we get to know you and your interests, it will shape some of what we do. So it's not a generic program, it's very much a Kootenay created program with UBC instructors who really want to be part of this work and learn from you and with you as well.
Thanks, Leighton.
Okay, hooray, everybody. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.